camping out for 3 days and did the outline for the book and went home and wrote it. Well, that took half a year. And that took quite a while to get it published. But you know, one chapter that if you've read the book, fine, you'd probably like to hear it again. If you haven't read the book, you'll still enjoy it. You don't have to know much about the story, except two things. There are two Raven characters in this story, among many Raven characters in this story, who are an old pair of ravens. Well, middle-aged maybe. Well, maybe younger than that, but two of them, and their names are Molly and Zach, okay? And we're gonna hear about them here. So this is part 3, chapter 8. Zach, the eggs are hatching. Up on the south face of Yamnuska, in a beautifully crafted nest made of sticks on the outside and soft sheep wool on the inside, Molly and Zach were about to see what they had bred. 5 eggs lay in the nest. They were greenish blue, scrawled with lines of black and brown and red. Molly had sat on those eggs for 20 days. Now, whatever was inside was trying to get out. The egg tooth of a would-be nestling poked through the shell. Wiggle, wiggle. The baby bird inside lined up for another attack on its container. More picking, more wiggling. The baby had to get out on its own. No help would come from the adult birds. This was the first of many tests. Could the tiny thing inside free itself? If not, its raven parents would let it die in the shell. Weakness in hatching might be genetic, and every raven knew instinctively that an early death would prevent those weak genes from being passed on. Molly and Zach watched as first one, then another, then yet another head popped through. 2, 3, would there be a fourth? Yes, 4 nestlings hatched. This was a very good result, but one egg lay unopened. Molly waited 2 days to give it a chance, then she pushed it out of the nest and off the ledge. All that space in the warm pocket among the sticks was needed for the nestlings. And such nestlings. Their heads were almost as large as their floppy, uncoordinated bodies. Their enormous eyes were tightly shut, a slit through the middle showing where they would open in a couple of weeks. Their bodies lacked feathers. Their skin showed pink and purple, except on their heads and backs, where a skiff of brownish down covered them lightly. Their little naked wings looked like flippers. Aren't they cute, Zach? Just dear, Molly, just dear. He perched at the edge of the nest. You produce beautiful babies, my love. They're yours too, you handsome bird. I know, he said, ruffling out his glossy neck feathers. They flashed proudly in the sun. The nestlings held their heads up as high as they could when Zach or Molly brought them food. They opened their bills absurdly wide to expose the bright yellow and pink colors within. Down each throat, Zach and Molly dumped enormous quantities of edibles, mostly crushed up insects, as bird baby food. All day long, load after load, Molly and Zach stoked those throats. When the nestlings found their voices, the incessant hungry squawking hurried the 2 adults on their forays. Out, find something, back. Out, find something else, back. More? You want more? Molly touched the leathery bill of a baby. It opened wider. Quack, quack, quack. Oh, my sweetums, such a hungry raven. Here we are. She shoved her bill into the pink and yellow gape. The nestling fluttered its flippers rapturously as a wad of pulpy beetle parts went sliding down. Back in a minute, darlings. Croak, croak! Only when both parents were away finding food would the nestlings stop clamoring. Their wobbly heads would sink back below the rim of the nest, and their vocal muscles, the strongest part of a baby raven, would relax. The little birds would become completely silent so that nothing on the hunt for nestlings could find them. And nothing did. Any crow that ventured within sight of the nest wished it hadn't. Even the prairie falcon, fiercest bird in the valley, kept well clear of Zach and Molly's ledge. The two ravens were excellent parents. All four of their children thrived, growing larger by the day. On sunny afternoons, when the south face became baking hot and the nestlings made unhappy sounds, Molly would fly down to one of the ponds at the base of Yamnuska. There she would dip herself in the water and fly back quickly to settle cool and dripping over her young. At night, she kept them warm under her body and wings. One morning, their eyes opened, all the nestlings, all together, and in doing so, they discovered one another. A few had started to speak in raven nestling talk, and now they certainly had plenty to talk about.
Ew, ugly, you really ugly. So you. Me too?
Zach and Molly were relieved. The noise would now die down as the young birds began speaking more and yelling less. The brood had figured out the routine: squawk, eat, sleep, and life was straightforward. Black feathers were appearing on their bodies, and Molly showed the nestlings how to preen themselves. Clumsily they practiced, pawing away with their bills, trying to get their big heads over their backs without losing their balance.
Caw! You fall down. Not funny. Me too?
Molly and Zach were pleased to see that this batch of nestlings, like their others, didn't need any toilet training. Each baby bird knew what to do. It would back up to the edge of the nest and excrete directly into the bill of one of the parent birds.
What?
Yes.
That's disgusting.
Yes. The stuff would come out in the form of a pill-like pellet, not a squirt. Then Zach or Molly would fly a little distance away with the pellet and drop it. Surprisingly clean and tidy, this procedure kept the nest from becoming fouled and smelly, which would have attracted predators. One day, Colin came to visit. And I got to tell you that Colin is the main character in this book. Anybody here named Colin? Sometimes we have a Colin in the class. Now, Molly didn't like other birds coming to the nest, and Zach enforced her wishes. But when Colin arrived, she made an exception. He was almost one of the family. Colin, how good to see you. Molly had missed him. Neither she nor Zach had been with the flock for many days. Molly, Zach. And by the way, that's how ravens say hello. How do you do that? You do it in the back. We better take a break and do a few groans, eh? Okay. You do it in the back of your throat. It's... Let's try it. Shall I give it another hour to sound? Well, there you go. Just remember that if you need a little secret saying that to recognize the other members of your class, you just go. It's spelled, by the way, G-R-O. I knew that. Okay. Colin stood at the end of the ledge, not wishing to intrude, but he was very interested in this whole bird-raising operation. He had been asking old Greta about it. Go find Zach and Molly's nest and see for yourself, she had said. Just remember to be extremely polite. They may not want you coming around. So Colin stood humbly, waiting to be invited nearer. Zach was eager to show off his brood. Come on over, Colin. Have a look at what we've got. Colin peered over the rim and into the nest. There were the babies staring back at him with wide blue eyes. They were all fully feathered now, looking passably like ravens instead of some animal's interior organs. They all began to speak at once. Mummy, Mummy, that's not you.
Who is it?
It's another daddy bird, I think.
We already have a daddy bird. Tell it to go away. Go away!
Colin burst out laughing. These little things were so funny. Their heads were very big, and their bills would open very wide when they spoke, then snap shut. Cry, he said. Your nestlings are wonderful. Oh, thank you, Molly said, showing her pride with a turn of the head. Her eyes shone. This is what she lived for. It was nice of you to compliment us on them, Zach added. I guess you wouldn't remember what nestlings look like from your own days as a beggar. That's what raven parents called their young, beggars. Used with affection, the word described them perfectly. All day long, they begged. Molly's nestlings had become quite good at it, each one developing its own enduring version of the head up, bill open, wing fluttering posture that said, I'm cute, feed me. One of them went through its routine now for Colin. Without thinking, Colin coughed up a couple of flies and tucked them into the baby bird's gate. Oh, Colin, how sweet of you. Molly couldn't believe it. Colin had fed the nestling as if he had been doing it for years. Well, how did you learn to do that? Zach asked. Colin blinked. I don't know, he said. It just seemed to be the right thing to do. That was the right thing, Zach said. And it shows that you're going to be, maybe you already have been, a fine father. A father? Me? A father? Colin looked at the nestlings again. Another was begging to him. They really are very cute. He brought out more gullet goo and fed the little raven. Well, now the others were starting to squawk. He found that he had just enough to give them each something. They ought to be calling you Uncle Colin, Zach said with a chuckle. Unga calling, one of the babies cried. The others joined in. Unga crawl. Call. Unca. Colin looked at them and smiled. You kids have a way of winning a bird over, he said. Ober. Unca, Ober. Calling Uncle, feed me again. Me too. More again. Do it again. Colin was out of food. I'll go get some more, he said. Oh, don't bother, Molly said. That's our job, not yours. Besides, we were just about to leave the little beggars and go for a short flight while they nap. Nap? One of the nestlings said. Nap now? Nap. Me too? There you go. The nestlings.